What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Nick with Leverage Media, and welcome to another episode of the Ask Dr. Nick show. So I am here in LA, just wrapping up our end of the year trip back to reality. Tomorrow we're heading back to cold-ass Chicago, and won't be able to sit out on the beach in 70-degree weather anymore. So we'll hop right into this. Hope you guys had an excellent new year, great holiday season, and ready to crush it in 2020. All right, so first question. If I'm trying to grow my leads and new patients faster, should I just focus on the ads that drive new patients now and wait to do the long game content for after cash flow increases? So if you're desperate, then yeah, if you only have so much money, so much bandwidth, so much energy, then put that money and time and energy towards, conversion stuff. So that would be mainly Facebook ads where you're making an offer, Google ads, depends on if you know how to run them or not. I still would be doing the content though as you are doing the conversion ads, but if you can only do one and you're really desperate for new patients, I would say go ahead and do those conversion type ads, but I would not make that much more than like a first quarter thing. The longer that you do that, the more it affects your brand, the longer term you just run ads. The other thing is that the content's going to take time for it to really make a difference. So the earlier you get started with that, the better. And there's nothing that says you can't be doing both. You may not have the money to do a paid strategy behind the content, but you can at least be getting into the rhythm of doing it. All that takes is just some effort, maybe once a week, once a day, to sit down and shoot something that you think is going to be valuable to the people that consume your content. So then when you're ready to do more of a paid strategy on the content side, you'll already be into the rhythm of it. Now all you have to do is maybe fine-tune the message a little bit and put some ads behind it. All right, number 2, what is a realistic and effective budget for marketing in 2020 with so many businesses competing for the attention of my local audience? This is a good one because, man, I just see more and more local businesses running ads that are very similar to the ads that the chiropractors are running. So whether it's gyms, whether it's karate studios, insurance agents, really anybody that has a local business now has a cottage industry of people that have taken courses on how to run Facebook ads, and they are now being sold to and told that this is going to be, the biggest thing that you've ever had to do for your business. Restaurants, hotels, every local business now is competing in the newsfeed, and the Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies are really starting to get serious about spending more money on in the social channels. So, in terms of a realistic and effective budget, I always, shoot for 5 to 10%. I tend to be on the higher end, on the 10% side of the marketing budget. So if you're collecting, let's say you're collecting $40,000 a month, you should be spending $4,000 a month in marketing and advertising, and that can include, an agency fee, obviously ad spend, can include booth costs or the cost of like doing events. If you do a dinner with the doc, the cost of like running the event. But I think that 10% is a really good number to shoot for. Now, if you're in growth mode and you really want to accelerate it, you can push that to 15 or 20%, especially if you're the one that's seeing the patients. You're going to be able to keep a lot of the money that comes in. The way that I always think about overhead and marketing is that, let's say you're collecting $50,000 a month. Or actually, let's say it's a little bit, you're kind of earlier in the cycle of your career. Let's say you're collecting $20,000 a month, you're keeping 10 of it. If you're doing the 10%, you're spending about $2,000 a month. The problem is if you've got an agency, they might be taking half of that or more, and you're left with only $500 to $1,000 for the ad spend. If you really want to get aggressive, and I was going to explain kind of how I think of things. So if I was collecting $20,000 and my overhead was say 10, that's covered. Like whatever I'm doing right now to bring in the 20 is covered. If I want to grow to 30 and I'm seeing all the patients, then basically, unless I doubt that you'd have to add in another staff member going from 20 to 30. So the vast majority of that money, your utilities are paid, your rent's paid, your staff is paid. The majority of that money, if not the 90% of it or more, is gonna go to you. So if you were able to say, all right, if I could put an extra $1,000, an extra $2,000 into this marketing, and I can net $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 out of it, and I get to keep all of that delta, then I think that's the way you got to go. And then if that gives you enough business to where you're starting to hit capacity and you want to bring on another person, now you're really talking about business. Now instead of you owning a job, now you can start to own a business when you can start to have make some of your income off of other doctors seeing the patients that you're responsible for bringing in. So think of it that way. If you're a mature business and you're collected $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 a month, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 is a lot of money to be spending locally. So I think 10% is awesome for like anybody maybe like 60,000 and above. Under that though, you've got to really think, especially if you're the one that's seeing all the patients, you've got to really think about maybe going into that 15 or 20% range to really accelerate that growth. All right. And what that does is it usually allows you to go into different channels. You don't want to just like throw $2,000 more at Facebook ads. At some point, there's a law of diminishing return. With Google ads, there's only so many people that are clicking on or searching for things and clicking on the ads. So at some point, you have to kind of say, okay, this is the budget that I want to spend on this avenue. But what the extra money does is allows you to go into other things that maybe you weren't able to do otherwise. All right. Number 3. Content marketing feels complex, and that makes me resistant and feel overwhelmed. How do you recommend I think about content marketing differently? So the way that I always get people to get started is when you think of content, you have to think about your audience first. You have to think about it almost as community service versus something that you have to do. When you take yourself out of the equation, what did they say? They said, feels complex, it makes me feel resistant and feel overwhelmed. You don't have to do everything, all right? Just start with one thing that you're comfortable with. If it's shooting videos, if it's easy for you to talk in front of a camera, then start there. If it's easy for you to write, start with a blog. If it's easy for you to have conversations with people, start with a podcast. But start with something. It's just like with, it's early in January 2020. Everybody's already probably failing on their New Year's resolutions. But the way that I'm reading a book called Atomic Habits right now, which is an awesome book. And one of the things that they talk about is, start with a 2-minute goal of the bigger thing that you want to do. So if you want to work out 5 days a week, just start every day you drive to the gym. You can turn around and drive back, but the one thing that you have to do is drive to the gym. Because once you're there, of course, you're going to get out and you're going to go work out. But if you just break it down into things that anybody could do, no matter how busy they are, no matter how stressed they are, they could still do that 2-minute version of the goal. Instead of doing 100 push-ups, do 1 push-up every day, right? Once you do that 1, you'll probably do 5, then you'll do 10, you can do however many you want. So always start with the thing that you know you're going to get done. If you try to do everything, this is a big problem that I have, is instead of just trying to start out with a simple task, I'll try to think of like what would be the greatest way that you could ever do this, and then I end up getting overwhelmed, and sometimes I don't do everything that I want and set my mind to do. So I'm trying to be better about that in the new year, is like do the things that you know you're going to be able to do. If you say you're going to do it, get it done, so that you don't feel like stress, or you don't feel like you're missing out on things that you said you would do. So that's number one. Number one is keep it simple, keep it to something that you know you're going to do. And then number 2 is make it about the audience. Make it about the people that you're trying to serve. When you see yourself as a community service versus I'm doing this video so that I can get patients, so that I can make more money. It's just never going to be, that's never going to be a good enough reason for you to get over that feeling of overwhelm. The thing that's going to allow you to get beyond whatever is blocking you is when you make it about something bigger than yourself. So those are really the two things that I would recommend. Is number one, keep it simple, something you're going to do. Number two is make it about your audience, not about yourself. All right. Number 4, I'm not really the ideas person. Does that mean content marketing is not for me? I almost think that the ideas person is at a disadvantage when it comes to content marketing. I think the doer is at an advantage when it comes to content. So there was an example in that book I just talked about, Atomic Habits. There was, I think it was UCLA. They took a photography class and they split it into 2, and they said this half of the class is going to be graded on quantity of work. So if you do 100, if you turn in 100 pictures, you get a C. 150, you get a B. 200, you get an A. Whatever the numbers were, quantity was going to win out when it came to the grades. The more you got, the better the grade you got. The other one was the other half of the class was going to be graded on quality. And they were only going to turn in 1 picture at the end of the semester, and they were going to be graded on that 1 picture. And so they let everybody go. And what they found at the end of the semester was that the group that was graded on quantity actually ended up having better quality pictures than the group that was graded on quality. And the reason why was because the group that was graded on quantity was actually doing. They were actually out there. They were trying new things. They didn't care if they messed up because they knew that that picture was still going to go towards their grade. So they were trying new techniques in the darkroom, new things with the camera, new equipment. They were always testing, right? And so they would find things that worked, and then they would keep doing them. The ones that were graded on quality, they found that they thought about it a lot. They talked about it a lot. They had a lot of theories. But in practice, they weren't trying things as much as the group that was doing it on quantity. So I'm an idea person, and I've gotten into the habit of doing content. But when it first started, the way that I really started with content is I had to hire a marketing director who was more of a doer than I was, and I just put them in charge of making sure that we created content. Us, me and the other doctors. And so, being whether it's just you or having somebody on your team, somebody who's going to be an implementer, who's going to get shit done, those are going to be the people that are going to make more content than just sitting around and thinking about it. So, even though you're not an ideas person, I still think you're probably at an advantage in that respect. All right, number 5. What are the biggest things you have learned about digital marketing in 2019? I'd say a couple of biggest things. So one of the biggest things is, man, it is getting competitive out there. So I think 2019, I kind of felt a tipping point when it comes to these offer ads. So I think that they've been around long enough now. The early adopters, 2016, 2017, they just crushed it with that because no one else was really doing it. So no one in your town was really doing them in terms of the other local businesses. Definitely no other chiropractors were doing them. So people were getting just amazing results, not only with lead numbers, but also people showing up, people signing up. The quality seemed to be a little bit better. Over time, more people have entered that space, more chiropractors have entered that space. So I've seen towns of 50,000 people that'll have 5 or 6 chiropractors all running basically the same ad. And that's all they're doing, is they're just running Facebook ads. Or the ads that they're running on Facebook are only for these offers. So that's probably one thing, is that I think that the time of the Facebook offer ad is probably, I don't know if it's dead. I don't think it'll ever really truly be dead. But the time of that's all you have to do to grow your practice, I think that is probably coming to an end. I think that Facebook users are liking things less, liking pages less. Your organic reach is down. So I think that you've got to be really committed to a long-term strategy when it comes to creating content. So if all you're doing is running Facebook ads right now, just know that I think that it'll start to accelerate in terms of the lowering of the ROI and the effectiveness of those. So that's probably number one. Number two, digital marketing trends. I think that written content is starting to become even more important than it was even in the past. I think that people are getting so inundated with advertising that I think that that written content, meaning like Google search results, blog posts, things like that, I think that they are becoming more and more important. Everybody is heavy on video, which is great. Like, people are consuming video at levels that they've never have before. But I think that written content still has its place, and I think that it's really important in terms of your SEO. I do not think that doing SEO to show up for your town, your state, and chiropractor, I do not think that is like even remotely as effective as it was even 3 or 5 years ago. I think that's really a place for Google ads. The place that is really going to make a difference when it comes to written content, though, is when people are searching for conditions and they don't know what the solution is. That's really going to be your opportunity. And Google's algorithm, that's probably the reason why it's so much more important in 2019 than it was even in 2018 or 2017, is that it's becoming more and more important for the content to be relevant and like real versus just getting keywords stuffed with anything you want to show up with. So the on-page experience, I think, is super relevant now. Google is penalizing people that are just trying to hack the system. Their algorithm is getting smarter and smarter. So good quality written content is really going to win out, and it has been for the last year. It seems like even more than it did previously. And then third, I think, is just like content marketing in general is just becoming almost like a necessity for running a business. It's almost like doing your taxes or paying your bill. It's just like having a marketing department that is creating content is almost becoming a mandatory part of running a successful practice, and I think that that's only going to grow over time. It's always starts out at a national level and it comes down to a local level. But even in places, in bigger cities, you see this a lot. There's micro podcasts and micro blogs that are their own standalone businesses, and I mean they've been that way for a while now. But even in towns of my office is in a town of 100,000. In a town of 100,000 people, there's still so much opportunity to create a blog or a podcast or video content around very specific niches that you're wanting to really focus on, whether it's runners or athletes or babies or whatever it is. Being able to create that content, and it's easier now than ever to get that stuff out there and get it in front of the people that are going to care about consuming it. So 2019 was just even a bigger year for content in my mind. And it has to be paid because you just don't get that organic reach anymore. So you've got to make sure that you're getting that stuff out in front of people and engaging with them the way they want to be engaged with. So hopefully you guys are off to a great start in the new year, and I'm excited for the rest of this year to be on this journey with you guys. So if you have any questions, again, just hit me up on Facebook or Instagram at Dr. Nick Silveri, and just use hashtag AskDrNick, and we'll get your question on an episode soon. All right, talk to you soon.